All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming to ForeFlight Dispatch 201. We did do a 101 session yesterday. If you missed it, it will be recorded. It was recorded. So you'll be able to view that later if you want to check it out. So for today, we're going to be talking about more advanced capabilities in dispatch. My name is Caitlin Galloway. I am the product owner of Dispatch, and I have been with ForeFlight for 6 years. So we'll do a quick overview of the dispatch ecosystem and cover a lot of what's new. We've done a lot in the last 2 years since the last show. We'll get more into the dispatch settings, a lot more ways to optimize your setup. And then we'll talk about a couple things that are coming soon, which are Fuel Advisor, our integrated tankering solution, and eAPIS. And then, of course, at the end, we'll have time for Q&A. So dispatch is the center of everything. We built this tool to bring everything together, make the workflow more seamless for the flight department. And this is truly integrated. There are several scheduling systems that we automatically integrate with, and we provide you the tools. If you want to build your own integration, you can do that too. We also work with some trip support partners. Here on the screen, we've got Jeppesen ITPS, Honeywell Forge, and UAS International Trip Support. They can come into your dispatch account and do planning on your behalf as well. And then everything, of course, flows down to ForeFlight Mobile so that the crew has all of this information that you've been planning. There are some new things that we've recently added: runway analysis, weight and balance, tankering, and eAPIS, which we'll talk more about in this session. And all of these are integrated into Dispatch, so you don't have to leave this ecosystem to do your planning. You can do everything from right here. And then just on the left here, you can see just a small sampling of the scheduling systems that we integrate with. There are definitely more. And if there's someone you're looking for, you can definitely let us know. Talking a little bit more about trip support. What we've heard from our customers is that, trip support is going to be doing some additional planning for you. They have some documents that they need to get to you. So like I mentioned, they can sign right into your dispatch account. We can link your accounts together, and they can easily upload those documents, and those can get sent down to the crew. So let's talk a little bit about what's new. As I mentioned, it's been 2 years since the last NBAA, which was actually when we launched Dispatch. So we've come a long way since then, and we'll just give a quick recap of some of those items. The first thing I want to talk about is performance calculations. We've had en route performance for a few years now. But what we've been working on in the last couple of years and just released earlier this year is runway analysis. So we have built this in-house directly with the OEMs. So now we've got in-route and runway performance. When you go into the runway analysis tab in Dispatch, you can take a look at first, the weather, and we're going to be using, the latest METAR or TAF that we have. Of course, on mobile, if you've got the AutoDispatch, you can punch that in as well. You can also configure your aircraft here. If you need to change it from your default settings for the aircraft, if you need to add flaps, turn on your anti-ice, anything like that, you can configure that here. And then just below that, you're going to see a list of all the runways at your departure airport. We have a toggle here that will automatically select the best runway and engine out procedure for your best max takeoff weight. So in the background as you're planning, before you even get to this tab, we're choosing what we think is the best runway for you based on the winds, the length, your max takeoff weight. And we have also been building in-house RNAV engine out procedures. And these are built following the SIDS. So everything comes together here. You can view it all. And of course, this goes straight to mobile as well. Weight and balance, we actually just released this week to our business customers. So this is in mobile as well, but this is the view in Dispatch. So we have a weight and balance tab where you can add your crew, your passengers, and as you can see, the PIC in this screenshot is included in the basic operating weight. So this is a piece that we didn't have in our first version of weight and balance, but it's something that we now support. So you can come in, you can configure your aircraft. We've got several templates. You can adjust the cabin layout, choose what's included in your basic operating weight, and so on. Once you've added everything to your load, you'll be able to see your envelope change as you add and remove items. And finally, you can generate a load manifest. The crew can do this on mobile as well, but you can do it here. And they have the ability to sign this and send it back to you. So great load manifest here, but of course, as the planner on Dispatch, you could take a look at it beforehand. Now let's talk a little bit about routing. So for our international customers, a lot of the time we're going to need routing to our alternate. So we have a tool in here for alternate routing. If you're not sure what you want your routing to be, you can check that auto button and we'll automatically fill something in for you. If you know exactly what you want to put in, you can punch that in manual. And another feature in this section we just added is the ability to choose a cruise profile to your alternate. We've always had the recommended route. You'll see that on mobile as well, with Eurocontrol validation, making sure you're getting cleared as filed, all of those pieces. But if there's routes that you get all the time, you always want to show as an option, you can now save those routes in Dispatch. So you can just click that save icon and then you'll see just below the recommended route, we've got our saved routes there. So easy access to routing you want to be able to always grab. Route constraints is something that we have continually been adding. So we have added more constraints in the last couple of years, but this is just if you need to do more complex route building, you can go into the route builder and just as an example here, right, we've got some partial routing. If you've got permits, you can put in that partial routing. You can avoid FERS. I'll show you a list here, but once you add those constraints, we'll generate a new optimized route, Eurocontrol valid if necessary, for you considering those constraints. And here's just an example of avoiding a couple of FERS. You can see the original route in gray and then the new route in blue that we've generated around your constraints. And here's the list of what we currently support. As I mentioned, we're adding more all the time. If you have any great ideas, feel free to let me know if there's something you want to see here. Also in the route builder, we had the route report in the past, but it was just a PDF. And that's just checking against the Jeppesen Airway Manual to see if there's any airway restrictions for where you're overflying. Now we've made it interactive. So the screenshot that you see here will, spit out any airway restrictions from the Jeppesen Airway Manual, and then if they're relevant to you and you need to avoid them, you can just check the box and add those as another constraint. Just below the constraint section in the route builder, we have just a layout of all of your legs. And we give you the ability to make by leg adjustments. So what I'm showing here is that you can come in here and make altitude changes by leg. And you can set whatever altitude you want. And once you do that, you can choose if you want to be at that altitude before that waypoint or after it. And then we'll automatically recalculate and adjust the nearby altitudes as well. Just one thing I wanted to remind, nothing crazy new here, but we do offer ETP and ETOPS configuration. It's something you can configure per aircraft, and we will show that here on the map. And we'll also show it in the nav log. We've got a detailed ETP report for every different scenario. This is another piece that is really great to see textually and graphically is our airspace crossings. So what we're showing in this screenshot is overflown FIRS, and you can scroll through this list. And if we go to countries, you can see on the kind of bottom right there, there's a bigger pin. So if you hover over a certain waypoint, we'll illuminate that on the map. You can also export this into an XLS or CSV file. Filing in ForeFlight. This is something that we pride ourselves on being very easy. In Dispatch, it's just as easy. We have dual Afton connections. So it's an extremely reliable system, and it's very quick and easy. Of course, when we're filing the flight plan for you, we'll include the relevant Afton addresses, but you do have the ability in Dispatch to add custom Afton addresses if that's something you need. And a couple new things we've added in kind of the filing space on Dispatch is a tool called Flight Watchers. So if there's someone who's not crew, who doesn't want to be included in the load or souls on board, you can add them as a flight watcher. And that can be someone on your account. It can just be an email address, and that will give you give that person the ability to get all the emails and know everything that's going on about that flight. We've also included this dispatcher notes feature. So this is just another way for the planning team to communicate with the crew. You've got a 5,000 character limit here, and you could put any notes that you want, anything that the planner needs to relay to that crew, and that's going to show up in their release email and also in their nav log. Flight attachments, this is something that a lot of our planners use, and also, as I mentioned before, trip support can use this feature as well. So, of course, we provide some documents in Dispatch, but here you can upload your own. And we do support a variety of file types and sizes. And if you want to know more about that, you can talk to me after. We've also got flight history. So we've made some improvements to this section. You've basically got an audit trail of everything that has happened to this flight, everyone who has touched it, and the changes that are made. So, of course, you've got kind of like chronological, just a straight list, but if I came in and made, tons of changes to the fuel and the weight and balance and all of that, you can open up the details and you can see, for example, here, flight level was 390 and it changed to 410. So you have a detailed trail of what's happened with the flight. And this flight history will also include your flight service provider, your trip support, your pilots, so you can see everyone interacting with this flight. All right, so let's get into some of the settings. Like I mentioned, I think a lot of these tools that we're going to go over are really helpful to optimize your operation. To access the settings in Dispatch, you do need to be an administrator on your account. If you are not sure, you want to check that out, you can come talk to me or you can come check in the booth. But if you don't see that on your screen, that's why. Of course, we don't want everyone to have all of that power. So we click on the settings button, and there are a lot of pretty straightforward customizations that I'm not going to cover today, setting standard weights and that sort of thing. But where I want to start is the AutoDispatch tab. So the first thing to talk about here is auto refresh. And I would strongly encourage everyone to have this turned on. You can, of course, set your custom time frame for when you want the refreshing to stop. We generally see most customers stop refreshing at an hour before departure. And that will just, our system in the background will just regenerate those nav logs and briefings to make sure that your crew has the latest weather, the latest information, anything that's come in since they got that flight planned at the beginning. We've also got auto release. So you don't have to make sure that you remembered to release that flight to your crew from dispatch. You can set kind of a safety net. So basically anything that you want to go out, you can set your time frame. I've got 24 hours prior to departure here is when I want to make sure that that flight goes out. So again, just a little bit of a safety net so that you don't have to worry about clicking that button or missing a step. We've also just introduced auto routing, and we'll take a look at what that actually looks like here in a second. But what we'll do is if you have a route, whether it's direct or you already have some routing in your flight plan, our system will take a look and see if there could be a better route, if that could save you time or fuel or distance. And what we're looking at here is just how you can configure that. So you're like, I don't want you to tell me about a new route unless it's 5 minutes better or 10 minutes better. So that's some of the configuration that you can do here. And which thing is more important? Is time more important or is fuel more important? So we will show you the route proposals here. So here's just a couple of flights that I had planned. You can see your current route, our proposed route for you, and then the delta. So we can see how much fuel, how much time it's going to save you. And then, of course, just click that apply button if you like it, and that'll go back to the flight plan. Moving over from AutoDispatch, we're going to go to operational rules. And in my opinion, operational rules is the powerhouse of our configuration. This is just a view, kind of like the home page of all the rules that you've created. And we'll walk through making a couple of rules. So you'll just click Add Rule. And then I'm just going to go through a couple common ones. The first one I'm going to create, you can see we have a lot of options here. First one I'm going to create is a fuel policy rule. So as I start to fill this in, you'll see the rule preview at the bottom of this box. So let's say I'm going to choose aircraft type, Gulfstream 5, and destination Teterboro. So if these two conditions are met, then set my fuel policy to extra fuel 300 pounds. And again, like I said, at the bottom, you can just see we kind of write it out in plain language. This is what the rule, and this is how it's going to be applied. So instead of having to go through and check or make these changes manually, you can set up some rules for certain aircraft or destinations, tail numbers, anything like that. And that way, all of these items are just automatically applied every time you start planning. Another one that is really handy, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, is a custom nav log. So we have the ability to make as many nav logs as you want, customize them in any way that you want. So if you want a certain crew to get a certain nav log, maybe international versus US, you can set that here as well. Another big one is avoiding FERS. So if you've got some FERS that you never want to fly through, you just set a rule. We always avoid those. And now all of your route suggestions are automatically going to be applying that rule and making sure that you don't fly into that airspace. Last one to show you here is flight attachment. So just the example here I have is if my aircraft type is a Challenger, always add this document, which I just have, a TCDS for a Challenger. So you don't even have to add the files. You can just say, I always want this aircraft to get this, or I always want this document for Teterboro, and we'll just go ahead and add it in the background. So really a lot of customization and time saving that you get from these tools. Navlog Builder. This is a really awesome tool that gives you the ability to do really almost anything you want with your navlog. There are lots of different table options, and as you can see on the screen, you can move things around. You can scroll up to the top and condense it if things get kind of spaced out. And once you're ready configuring it, you can click preview and take a look at it before you hit save. And as you can see on the left side here, you can make as many navlogs as you want. And then on the main flight planning page, you can click the drop down next to navlog and choose one for a specific flight. You can also set a default. So if you want everyone at the company to have the same navlog, you make one, set it as the default. That's what they're always going to get, unless you change it. And this is just one more view of one of the boxes that you can add or modify on your navlog. So you can change the label names, move things around, add new columns. So definitely would encourage you to play with that. You could definitely come to the booth as well, and we can walk through anything that we look at here today. All right, so Fuel Advisor is coming soon. This is our integrated tankering solution. So I'm just going to walk through the workflow here of how you would set this up, and we'll go from there. So the first thing I'm going to do is in Dispatch, I'm going to create 3 legs or more. I'm just going to start with 3 here. And once I've planned those, usually when I'm on my last leg, I'll click on the Fuel Advisor button. And that'll take me to this view. So this is just kind of like the opening view of Fuel Advisor. If we had planned more legs, we can load them in here. Or if there's one that's not relevant to tankering, we can take it out. And then we'll just kind of go left to right. We want to make sure, this is all based on the tail number. So we're pulling in any flights within, 3 days of each other, roughly, that have the same tail number and that match departure destination. So we just want to make sure that our airports are correct. We can go in and choose our FBOs. We are showing retail, but we also have Jet Fuel X pricing. So if you have fuel cards, that's integrated in here as well. And then we are going to take a look at our fuel and fee numbers. So if you've selected an FBO just with the standard pricing or Jet Fuel X pricing, that's automatically going to fill in for you. But you can also input a custom fuel price if you've got something better. And then you can make sure that you've got your facility fees entered. And if you get a waived at amount, you can put that in. Once you put that in the first time for that FBO and that aircraft type, it's sticky. So it'll stay and it'll show up the next time you come into Fuel Advisor. Once that looks good, we'll go to the tankering column and we'll just make sure that our fuel at shutdown is correct. We don't know what's in the tanks, so we automatically will put in the default reserve fuel for that aircraft profile. But if you're not at reserves, just go ahead and make sure you update to what's in the tanks. After we've done that, at the top right corner, we're going to click Recommended Tankering. And that's going to recalculate and update basically the right half of the page. So what we're seeing here is on the left side, we're seeing our tankering suggestions, what the system is telling us. We're seeing a cost comparison. This is, all the details that you need. And then the metrics. So on the far right column, we are seeing fuel and weight information. And runway analysis and weight and balance is integrated in here. So we're considering your runway limitations, your weight limitations in this tankering tool as well. Of course, this is, broken out leg by leg, but if we scroll to the bottom of the page, we can just get our summary information. So we can see our fees, our fuel, our total, and our savings. And of course, if there's anything you need to change or want to modify, you can go play with the tool and see how the savings number can change, go down or go up, depending on what you need for that flight. Once everything looks good, we just click the button to apply the tankering scenario. You can see when it's done, it says successfully applied, and that's going to push back to all of the legs that you were planning. So if we go back to the flight here, we can see our fuel policy is updated to manual fuel, and we've got that number there. Obviously, our FBO has carried over here. And then our performance numbers, our fuel numbers, weight numbers, that's all going to update as well. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about today is eAPIS. This is something that we have soft released. If there is anybody here who does a lot of eAPIS flights into US, Mexico, and Caribbean, we would love to talk to you. If you can stay after and chat with me, we'd love to do some testing with you. So as I mentioned, currently just supported in the US, Mexico, and the Caribbean. We would definitely like to expand the countries that we support in the future. So let's walk through that workflow as well. Here I'm just planning a flight from Houston to Mexico City. And as soon as I put in a destination at one of the supported areas, that eAPIS tab is going to show up. So from there, we can just go straight over to the eAPIS tab. And the first thing that we're going to select is our type of flight. So we can choose private or commercial. We support both. Once we've made that selection, we can choose our aircraft operator. And if you have someone already in your account, that is the aircraft operator. Of course, you get this drop down. You can just select it, or you can create a new contact and then they'll be saved in the system. We'll also want to choose our 24/7 contact. And after we've done that, we'll just enter our CBP carrier code. Then we get to the people. So I had already selected myself as the PIC on the flight planning tab, but of course you can add them here as well. It's going to talk back to every page in Dispatch. So I've got myself here. If I need to check anything or update anything, we'll give you kind of a red X. And so we can click edit. And we can come in here and see, make sure all of the information is correct. And we will also notify you if a passport's going to expire within 6 months. Once we make sure everything's updated, you can see we've got a green check mark here. And then we can move on to adding our passengers. So we'll just click that Add Passenger button. And again, if you've already created some folks or you already have some people in your system, they'll show up here. I already have someone, but you can also create a new one. And every user that you create in eAPIS is saved in our system in our new secure tool. So you don't have to worry about personal information getting out of this system. So I added John Doe here, and you'll notice I've got a red warning that the passenger count doesn't match the payload count. So I didn't set up my weight and balance yet. So I'm just gonna hop back to the Flights tab, make sure that I update however many people are going to be on the flight so that everything is talking to each other, making sure everything's correct. So we're gonna have those checks in there for you. Now that I've added him, everything looks good. Passenger count matches payload count. And I could, of course, add more passengers from there. Once I'm ready to go, I can just click Review and Submit. And then you'll get this preview box. You can take another close look. As soon as you hit that Submit button, we are submitting it. It is live and it is going. And once you've done the submission, in the Files section, so you'll get an acknowledgement back, and we'll also automatically import these documents for you. So you've got your eAPIS document, your gen deck. And again, this is in the Files section. It's going to go straight down to the crew as well. And I know I've been saying it the whole presentation, but everything that you plan in Dispatch is going to carry down to the crew. And any changes that the crew makes will go back to Dispatch as well. So you can always stay in sync across the entire system. And with that, I will open it up for Q&A.
Is there any default when you are asking for a route to your alternate? I would hope that there's no direct. In other words, you said we could customize it, you could go in there and say, but from a planning standpoint, especially when you're talking to EASA, when you're talking about, European checks on the ground, they obviously want a routing of some kind.
Right.
And are you pulling from routes just like we do when we're flight planning, routes that are commonly used?
Yeah, we're always using, any information, any historical information, that's definitely considered. Generally, when you go plan, definitely into Europe, if you're planning into Europe, we're always going to add alternate routing. That's the default. We're going to fill in an automatic route at least. And then you can come in and change that. Another thing that we didn't talk about is you can set an operational rule. So if you always go to a certain airport, you can always set the alternate routing to be this.
Follow on that, could you set a minimum fuel plan for that alternate too? Sometimes some engines will create a really unrealistic fuel burn for an alternate.
I don't think we can set a default minimum fuel for alternate, but we do have a lot of buffers in our planning. But I don't think there's a setting for that today.
With the customizable flight logs, can you set fields that you can then enter with the iPad keyboard? If you have company-specific data that you have to collect, I know you can add that to the nav log and then pencil it in, but is there a way to set that up so that I don't have to write it in with a pencil? I can say, you can type the data in.
You just want to be able to annotate the nav log? Is that what you're asking? So you can, there is a way, at least with the iPad I've seen, you can tap on it and you can turn on markup.
Okay.
And you can write on there. It's not like perfectly integrated into ForeFlight, but yes, you do have the markup option. You had a question?
Yeah. Is there a way you can get, the documents you're going to send to the crew, the things you're going to see on your tablets and phones? Is there a way you can get a copy of that to your email, PDF or something? So that way you can, because there's a lot of places internationally where they need a hard copy regardless.
Okay.
Of a certain amount of documents. Is there a way I can get a PDF so I can get it printed?
Yes. So what we do is on that Files tab, there's a toggle, and you can say include in the release email. So not only will they show up in ForeFlight Mobile, they'll also show up in the email when they get assigned to that flight. Just a final note here, if you have questions, you can always contact sales@foreflight.com. If you're looking for training for business accounts, anything like that, our success team, their email here on the screen. And of course, you can go to our website to learn more. And we'll be at the booth, 2635. If you guys want to come take a look at some iPads or some web stations, we'll be demoing all of this there as well. Thank you.